to the Strike Zone. I am Joe Hunk, and the beautiful thing directly behind me is First Horizon Park, which is where we are every single Thursday night on Zone TV. Whether the Sounds are playing or if they're not playing, it doesn't matter. We're going to be here at First Horizon Park talking to you about, honestly, my favorite game. I mean, it's what I played all my entire life, and that is the game of baseball. Now, the next 2 weeks are going to be extremely fun and entertaining when it comes to what is happening in the state of Tennessee, which is what I love to feature whenever it comes time for us to talk baseball on the Strike Zone. Because, no, we do not have a Major League Baseball team yet, but there is a ton of baseball going on. We know about Vanderbilt. They're heading out to Corvallis to go and play in the Oregon State Regional. Obviously, the Tennessee Volunteers are hosting in the Knoxville Regional. We'll talk about both of those coming up here in just a little bit and about what you could potentially expect, because as good as Oregon State has been playing, they haven't been playing as good the last couple of weeks. So there's kind of a path there for Vanderbilt if they can get their crap together. Now, the thing about the First Horizon Park and things that are going to be going on the next 2 weeks. No, it's very unique. Matter of fact, there's only 2 weeks in the schedule where the Nashville Sounds will either be on the road for 2 consecutive weeks or they're going to be at home for 2 consecutive weeks. We're in the middle of the 2 consecutive weeks that they will be on the road. So it's 12 games there. They did 6 in Toledo last week. They're doing 6 in Durham this week. And then they're going to be back home starting at next Tuesday. Now, the cool thing about next week, there's always some great things that the Sounds are going to be doing for you. But I'm telling you, I know that there's a potential that both Vanderbilt and Tennessee could be playing in Super Regionals next weekend. Honestly, I kind of hope they both are. That's just me. But next Saturday night, you need to be at First Horizon Park. The Sounds will be honoring Turkey Stearns. If you don't know who Turkey Stearns is, it's okay. But trust me, you kind of need to, okay? Because not only does he have an amazing connection to the city of Nashville, because this is where he is from, but he is also one of the most famous Negro League baseball players to ever play the game. And yes, that is including some of the greatest Negro League players that we have heard about throughout history that then eventually played in the major leagues. And with Turkey Stearns, he only had 186 home runs in his career. But the thing was, he batted .349 for his career. Okay, let me emphasize this. He batted .349 for his entire career of playing in the Negro Leagues. That is how good of a player that he was. And in fact, he played a bunch when it comes to, he played in Kansas City. He played in Chicago. He finished with the Detroit Stars. He played in Montgomery to start his career off with the Gray Sox. He also played here in Nashville as well for the Nashville Giants in the 1920s. And through all that, he was a 5-time All-Star. He won multiple batting championships for the Negro National Leagues, and he was inducted into the Major League Baseball or the Baseball Hall of Fame back in 2000. He had an amazing career. And in fact, if you are a Detroit Tigers fan, cool. Not saying I'm sorry, but cool. And if you go to Comerica, there are statues and plaques and stuff like that are around Comerica Park for Turkey Stearns. He's from Nashville, and his family is going to be here. There's going to be a really cool ceremony and stuff like that that's going to be taking place on the field beforehand. There's an amazing initiative that we're going to be talking to you about next week called The Nine, that is actually trying and helping when it comes to the old history of baseball and things like that, not only in Nashville, but across the minor leagues and across the country as well. So there's a lot of things when it does come to that you're going to want to be paying attention to, because next week, I'll tell you a little bit more about it later on the show, but next week we have 2 special guests that are really going to help us learn about the history of baseball in the city of Nashville, because that's something that we talk about a lot on the Strike Zone, because a lot of fans obviously do want a Major League Baseball team here. But before you can get a Major League team, you kind of need to know the history and why this city should be good for a team and why there are players and things like that this city has had that they need to remember and they need to honor when it comes to the future of the baseball in the city of Nashville and in the state of Tennessee, because you do need to remember the past in that. So that's some of the things that we're going to be doing, and that's some of the stuff that the Sounds are going to be doing coming up next week. So we will talk more about it next Thursday night when we are back here for that series. And in fact, again, all the games next week as well are also going to be starting at 7:05, except for the Sunday game, obviously, but a little 30 minutes later than what we're used to. Normally the first pitch is at 6:35. So all of that being said, I appreciate you hopping in and watching the Strike Zone tonight, whether it's on Zone TV or if you're listening to the podcast, which if you miss any part of the show, you can then hop in and follow us, whether it's Apple Podcasts or anything else that you listen to. We're there in your podcast section. Look up 104.5 The Zone. Look up the Strike Zone. We will be right there. So if you happen to miss anything throughout the night tonight, you can go back and listen to it in the morning while you're taking a shower, because that's what I do. I'm the weird one that listens to podcasts while he's taking showers and getting ready in the morning. But if you missed it, the Nashville Sounds, yeah, they're one of the best teams in minor league baseball. Up until last night, you could have said that they were the number one team in minor league baseball. Let me emphasize, I'm not talking about just the International League. All right, I'm not talking about just AAA. I mean, the Nashville Sounds are the number one baseball team in the minor leagues until last night. They're now number two because the Myrtle Beach Pelicans decided that they did want to win last night. And so they now have 34 wins, where the Nashville Sounds only have 33. I say only 33 because if you start looking around minor league baseball, there are teams that are actually leading their division right now that only have like 22 wins on the season, yet they're in first place of their division. Pensacola Blue Wahoos, I'm looking at you. So trust me, the 33 wins that you are getting from this Nashville team, this is an amazing baseball team, and you definitely need to be coming out and making sure that you're here some point in time next week. Also, before we get going, I want to say congratulations to Ethan Small, because if you missed it, Ethan Small got a spot start on Monday, Memorial Day, for the Milwaukee Brewers. And not only did he get a spot start, but his very first start in the major leagues, it happened at Wrigley Field, one of the most historic baseball parks in Major League Baseball, and if not the world. And he got the call up on there. It was funny because Memorial Day, we're all paying attention to different things. I just randomly turned on the TV, turned on MLB.TV. I was like, oh, look, Brewers and Sounds, or I should say Brewers and Cubs are getting going here in about 5 minutes. Let me turn it on. Brewers come up to bat, don't really do much in the first inning. Then next thing you know, I hear the announcers start saying, starting Brewers pitcher today, Ethan Small, getting the call up from Nashville. Wait, for real? Ethan Small has been one of the best pitchers in the International League and minor league baseball. And in fact, I told you about this a couple of weeks ago. Ethan Small would have probably even been up sooner if it hadn't been for the fact that he just needed to get some more innings in and continue to prove himself as that minor league pitcher, that he had the arm in there. He had an okay start. Obviously, it wasn't something that he was going to be going, he didn't throw a no-hitter. He obviously gave up a couple of runs. He got sent back down afterwards. But see, that's what happens in these doubleheader games, is Major League Baseball allows for you to bring up a pitcher and just have him make a spot start. And that is exactly what the Brewers did. What's great is before we got going tonight, I was kind of talking to some people around the building and all that before everything got going. And they honestly don't expect Ethan to be here much longer. Now, that's them. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case. But if you get an opportunity to, make sure that you're going to be down here for an Ethan Small start. He is one of the best pitchers in minor league baseball, and he is going to be up with the Brewers here in just a few weeks, maybe a month or so like that. He'll probably be up with the parent club for a good period of time. So just make sure that you get out here for it, because congratulations to him. I know it was just a spot start. I know immediately when he finished, they gave him a plane ticket and they sent him to Durham to meet the rest of the Sounds team, as they are in North Carolina right now. But congratulations to him for getting that spot start, man. That is absolutely tremendous for him. And again, we expect him to have many more starts throughout the rest of the season for the Brewers. As far as Durham is concerned, look, this is the best minor league franchise in the country, okay? The Tampa Bay Rays, not only do they do things differently when it comes to Major League Baseball, but they also have the best minor league system in baseball. And I'm not talking about Durham. I'm not talking about Montgomery. I'm not talking about Port Charlotte or Bowling Green or any of these other places that are affiliated with the Rays. If you are taking on a Tampa Bay Rays farm system team, you are going up against probably a bunch of players that are going to be playing in the playoffs in some sort of form of fashion in the next 3 or 4 years. And that is exactly what the Sounds have been dealing with. That's the reason why, again, they lost 17-4 last night. But you even go into this where on Monday, because the way that the Sounds in the Memorial Day weekend worked out, normally it's Monday that AAA has off. Instead, because Monday was Memorial Day, teams played on Monday for the Memorial Day holiday. They took Tuesday off, and then they got the series going again on Wednesday. The thing about the series with is the Sounds went in and they won, but the first 4 innings, they didn't really do much because they were facing Shane Baz, who is the #1 prospect for the Tampa Bay Rays. The only reason he's considered a prospect still is because he was actually down with a rehab start and he just hasn't gotten the innings in the major leagues just yet. That's why he's still considered to be the #1 prospect for the Tampa Bay Rays. Those types of prospects are everywhere in Durham. They're everywhere in Montgomery. Like, you can continue to go down through the Rays system and you're going to see it. Not only do you have Baz that was getting that start on Monday, you have Xavier Edwards, who's the #3 prospect for the Tampa Bay Rays. He's playing. Josh Lowe, not Lau. Josh Lowe is the #4 prospect. He's in the outfield for the Durham Bulls. You have Tristan Gray, who is #4 in the International League right now in home runs. He's playing shortstop for this Durham Bulls team. You have Jonathan Aranda, who's the first baseman for the Durham Bulls. He's #4 in batting average. He's top 10 in OBP. He's also like top 15 in OBS or OPS. Like, he's a tremendous hitter. And so all of these players that are in Durham, this is that way that you're wanting to see your minor league system be built up. And so that's the reason why when you go up against a team like this, there's a reason why the Durham Bulls have won the International League championship multiple seasons, and that's because you're going up against these amazing prospects. So that is exactly what the Sounds are going up against, and they've actually done very well, except for last night. Last night, okay, they did not do so hot, but normally they've been doing well. Now we flip over and we have some college baseball, because this is the time of year that is all about college baseball. This is when you start focusing on the regionals. Everybody saw what happened at the SEC baseball tournament. Tennessee just absolutely rolled through that tournament, and they are obviously the #1 team in college baseball going into this weekend. The regionals are unique because depending on where you're seated in this, it may actually be working out well for you, okay? Because there are some teams that have earned their regional seating based on what happened over the last month or two. Again, you look at an Auburn baseball team who really did not play well at all in Hoover, but they ended up getting a regional. Vanderbilt won their first game against Ole Miss, then ended up losing 2 in a row. One of those was to Tennessee, and then they lost again to, I believe, LSU. And so they got eliminated from the college, or I should say the SEC tournament. Now, the thing about these regionals is a lot of people want to rank them from the easiest regional for a team to win to the most difficult regional for teams to potentially make it out of there. And if you are the top seed, to actually be the team that makes it to the super regionals in that case. You have college baseball, and the NCAA kind of did a ranking system. And the ranking system basing the success of the teams that they have had over the last 15 games, as well as their RPI, their strength of schedule, and they put a bunch of different factors in it to figure out which regionals were the toughest, which regionals were the easiest. The toughest regional does include an SEC team, but it's Florida, and we all hate Florida. So good luck to you guys, because everybody that's playing in the Florida League or in the Florida Regional in Gainesville over the last 15 games, Florida has went 11-4, Oklahoma went 10-5, Liberty went 9-6, and Central went 12-3. That is hands down the toughest regional going into tomorrow and what's going to be happening. Now, what's interesting And I know we'll talk more about Tennessee here in just a little bit because of the way that Tennessee has been playing. You kind of figure, all right, well, Tennessee's playing. It's going to be, extremely easy for them. But what's really interesting is one of the easiest regionals, and I should say a regional that is going to be easier for Vanderbilt to get out of, is going to be the Corvallis Regional. Because everybody that's playing in the Corvallis Regional has not really been playing well over the course of the last 15 games. Yes, that obviously does include Vanderbilt. They're 7-8 over the course of the last 15 games. But you have San Diego, who's 11-4. That is going to be your West Coast team that nobody really pays attention to, has an opportunity to be making it to super regionals. They're going to be doing that with their bats. New Mexico State actually has a losing record going into the regionals so far in the last 15 games. They're 6-9 over the last 15. If you listen to 3HL, you heard Todd Furman talk about this on Wednesday. When it comes to betting and looking at trends, you don't really look at what happened in February. You don't look at what happened in March. You don't even really kind of look at what happened that much in early April. But what you do pay attention to what they did in late April, to what they're doing right now going into May, as well as into the beginning of June, which is where we get into these regionals, because you have pitchers that could have had an amazing start to their season, not give up any runs, but then you look back and you go, wait a second, they were playing a bunch of POS teams, and they were getting, that's the reason why they were only giving up 1 or 2 runs a start, and their ERA is so low. Once they got into conference play, it's a little bit different. The other thing when it does come to paying attention to these teams in the last 15 games has to do a lot with the fact that over the last 15 games, you're also going to be seeing most likely the roster that's going to be going to your regionals and your super regionals, as well as the College World Series. So paying attention to what those teams have been doing could be a factor that is going to be potentially playing well into what Vanderbilt's going to be doing. I'm not saying Vanderbilt can win this regional and get to the super regionals, because if you would have asked me a week ago, okay, Vanderbilt's going to be going up against Oregon State, then they are going to be going up against one of the best teams fielding-wise in college baseball. In fact, they are the second best fielding team in college baseball. The thing is you rewind this a week, and Oregon State over the course of a week went from only having 24 errors in like 51 games to having 34 errors in 59 games. So over the course of the last 6 weeks, or I should say 6 or so games, their defense has fallen apart in this way. So you then think, wait a second, we got to go to Corvallis. You're playing an extremely sound baseball team when it comes to fielding percentage. They're not going to make a lot of errors. You're going to make sure that you have to get the hits. You're not going to have to worry, or you're not going to be able to focus on them making the mistake that allows a door open. Oregon State hasn't been playing that well over the course of the last few weeks. And so now you start thinking that, wait a second, if we can get our pitching going and we can have it, because, between a couple of Vanderbilt pitchers, you can get through the first game or two and you would kind of be set for that championship round that Vanderbilt could be playing in. And then you just got to win one of the 2 games to advance to the super regionals. You are in a regional right now where the host team is not playing very well. You're probably going to have to worry about San Diego, which is going to be the team that you are going to be playing coming up tomorrow afternoon. And then you're either going to be facing New Mexico or Oregon State the next day. And if you go up against New Mexico State and if you've already lost game 1, then they have not been playing well. So you're in a scenario where this regional is not as difficult as you may have thought it was going to be when you first started looking, or even thought about how you were potentially going to be a host. And we thought that Nashville was going to be a host regional. Instead, they struggled down the stretch. They lost the 2 games in the SEC baseball tournament. And instead of being a host team, they eventually focused on having to go out to Corvallis. So that is what it comes to when you're looking at the Vanderbilt regional. That is a very winnable regional. And in fact, I worry more about that first game that they're going to have against San Diego than what I'm going to be worried about when it comes up against Oregon State. Yes, it's Oregon State. It's at home. If you talk to a lot of people around the game of college baseball right now, Corvallis is one of the most difficult places to play when it's an actual Oregon State baseball game. So that is going to be some question marks when it comes to this team, if they're going to be able to handle that, if they get by San Diego in game 1, going into game 2 and facing a very sound Oregon State baseball team. But remember, that Oregon State team has made a lot of errors in the course of the last couple of weeks. There's some room there that if Vanderbilt plays smart, and obviously you have somebody that can steal bases like Enrique, you can potentially make Oregon State make an error or two, and then you got some runs, and then you can possibly win that regional. That is going to be Vanderbilt's case. They're going to have to make Oregon State make errors because they've done so in the Pac-12 tournament. They've done so over the past couple of weeks, and instead of being the number 1 fielding percentage team, they're now number 2 behind Texas. So that's where, when you look at that regional, focus on the fact that Oregon State has not been playing well. Tennessee, on the other hand, okay, Tennessee's regional should be fairly simple, okay? And I'm saying it just because of one factor. Now, if you don't know who's playing in the Tennessee regional, it's Georgia Tech, it's Campbell, and it's Alabama State. Georgia Tech over their last 15 games are 9-6. Campbell over their last 15 games is 12-3. Alabama State over their last 15 games are 10-5. Records-wise, you go okay, but then you have to start looking at their RPI, their power rankings as far as that is concerned, and then you start to see that, yes, Alabama State won the SWAC. Obviously they had to win 3 or 4 games to get through that, and now they're going to be going up against a Tennessee team that, honestly, we need to focus more on one aspect of Tennessee's game because we focus way more on a totally different aspect of Tennessee's game. Everybody wants to look at their offense. It's the fun thing to look at, right? We all love seeing the bombs. Obviously, we remember the bomb that happened at 1 a.m. for Tennessee that went not only over the wall at the Hoover Met, but over the trees. I'm pretty sure it landed at Hoover High School. That's directly behind the Hoover Met somewhere. That ball was a bomb. Okay, you look at what Jordan Beck has been doing, how well he's been playing recently, and matter of fact, he's been playing this well all season long. That's the reason why he's one of the top 15 prospects in the country right now, going into the draft here in a few months, or a few weeks. But at the same time, this team is the best pitching team in college baseball. They have the lowest ERA in college baseball. I know that you want to focus on the offense because the offense is fun. You have the jacket and you have all the swag that comes with every bit of it. But from what Dollander is doing to what Beam is doing, and obviously Ben Joyce, which depending on if he's starting or coming in relief, what he is doing, this pitching staff for Tennessee has been set up so well for them to make a run because you saw it last season. Okay. And this is where the problem does lie sometimes in college baseball, specifically when you do get to that championship tournament inside the College World Series, which is the best 2 out of 3. And what I'm referring to between Vanderbilt and Mississippi State last year, you have 2 aces. Okay. And you have somebody like Jack Leiter that pitched as well as he did. And then you can turn around and your number 2 can go down, which is exactly what we saw last season. And that's exactly what we saw in the College World Series from Vanderbilt, whether it's dead arm, whether it's mileage, whether it's anything that you want to look at when it comes to the reason why the arm usage and the velocity starts to go down, that becomes a problem, okay? The usage of these players, and that is the reason why you start to look at oh crap, I don't know if somebody like Kumar Rocker is going to be able to get through these. Vanderbilt held off, tried to hold off for Kumar, getting him into game 3. Honestly, I don't think that Vanderbilt really wanted to pitch him at all. They were hoping to wrap this thing up in 2 games. And instead, they had to go to game 3, and Kumar Rocker didn't have the arm velocity. He was dealing with some arm issues. Heck, he's still dealing with arm issues. That's the reason why he didn't even go and sign his deal with the Mets. So the fact is, you don't need 2 pitchers that can dominate the way that Tennessee has. You then need that 3rd pitcher, okay? And that is where now, between those 3 pitchers that Tennessee has, you are looking at a scenario where they're setting up well that those could be your 3 pitchers in game 1, game 2, and game 3. I don't think, in all reality that Tennessee would want to have to turn to Ben Joyce to make another starting position because he's so good. He's so good at coming out of the bullpen that I don't think that would eventually be their focus. But what I do believe is that if you were to turn around and you were to use him in the bullpen and seeing the way that this is going to be going for them, as far as if they're in game 2, if they're trying to lock this up in game 2, you put Ben Joyce in with a lead in the 7th inning, you're not losing that game. You run that risk, though, if you do go to a game 3. But I'm looking 3 and 4 tournaments ahead because that's exactly what the regionals are. There are a bunch of double elimination tournaments that happen throughout the course of the next few weeks that lead into another double elimination tournament for you to win the College World Series. So with regionals, it's a double elimination tournament. Super regionals, it's a best 2 out of 3, which is a double elimination tournament. Then you get to Omaha, and again, it's another double elimination tournament before getting to the championship round. So there's a lot of baseball that still needs to take place. But the thing is, once you get out of Knoxville, okay, which you're not going to do for a while, but once you get out of Knoxville and you do get to TD Ameritrade, you're in a different ballpark, in a different atmosphere. And so the hitting could potentially go away. Now, we thought that as well in Hoover. That was the benefit that Tennessee came into when looking at them playing later on in the tournament. As much as it sucked for Tennessee fans to see these games continuing to get postponed and postponed and postponed, they benefited from this because the heavy air in Hoover went out when all the storms went away. And after that happened, then you saw the bats come alive. Okay, that is what you could potentially see in TD Ameritrade. You may not see the home runs, but now with a team that can hit as well as they can for batting average and be able to get those extra base hits, that is where it's going to benefit Tennessee more than being able to put the ball out of the ballpark. Yes, they're going to be able to do that. But if you get to TD Ameritrade, that is a different atmosphere with different air, and it's a much bigger stadium than what they play at with Lindsey Nelson. Seeing them do what they did at the Hoover Met last week was actually more of a precursor of what you could potentially see. A lot of base hits. Yes, they did hit a couple of home runs. They hit a few throughout the tournament, but you saw the hitting more about it, the base hitting, the doubles down the line, the triples, and those types of things, the situational hitting, getting a guy on at second and then scoring him on a base hit. Those are going to be the type of things that Tennessee's going to have to focus on more once they get to TD Ameritrade. That's in 2 weeks. Beforehand, bro, just light it up at Lindsey Nelson. Seriously. Just start stroking it and doing exactly what you can do, and do not get into a scenario like you did last year where it came down to the last at bat of the first game, because you do not want to lose this first game. Regardless as to way your pitching rotation is set up, you do not want to lose that very first game in the regionals, because from there on out, you're scrambling. It's different once you get to super regionals because that is a best 2 out of 3. So you don't have to worry about a potential of a 4th game happening. That's why when you get to the College World Series, it's very different because, yes, it is a double elimination tournament, but at the same time, then this whole tournament becomes into you're playing 4 and 5 games and you're trying to get seeing where your arms are. And that's the reason why it is so hard just to get to that Monday. It's also part of the reason that once you get to that Saturday, they give you Sunday off because your pitchers do need a little bit of rest when it comes to what they're trying to do. That's where Tennessee is going to potentially line up very well, because they have 2 aces that they can go to at any point in time. But then there's the third, and there's Ben Joyce. If they wanted to use him as a starter, they could. But his best benefit is going to be coming out of the bullpen in the 7th or 8th inning of that deciding game. The best part about if they go with that strategy is you're also saving his arm for the College World Series, because there probably is going to be a scenario, unless Tennessee just totally runs through this table of teams that they're going to be facing, that Ben Joyce is going to have to make a start somewhere in Omaha. That's probably going to happen at some point in time, depending on what happens with this bracket as far as they continue. He may not even have to start in the regionals. He may not have to start in super regionals, but the field in Omaha, which is an 8-team field instead of a 4-team, instead of a 2-team, which is what super regionals are, there's going to be a potential that he's going to have to make a start. Is Tony Vitello going to want to save his arm or try to get him to pitch early so that he's more available later on in the week once you start to get to that national championship round, if that is what Tennessee is going to do? So that's what we're looking at when it does come to these regionals that are happening this weekend. Tennessee has a much easier road. Oregon State, on the other hand, I really think that they are in a position that they could potentially lose this to a Vanderbilt, but watch out for San Diego. That is a very good hitting team, and I think San Diego could be one of those sleepers that could come out of that Corvallis regional, and they could potentially be advancing on. That's the way that I'm looking at a lot of things in this. Then comes the other factor, and I want to make sure that I get this right because there's been talk about this. In fact, it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago that this got asked on the stream. And in fact, you can start getting those questions in because we're about to start answering some of your Twitter questions here in just a few seconds. So if you're watching on Zone TV, throw it into the chat. I've got the chat pulled up. A couple of weeks ago, we actually had a Vanderbilt fan, because we were talking about the difference between Tennessee and Vanderbilt. We had a Vanderbilt fan named Vandy Chris that hopped into the chat, and he said this. He goes, "Can you talk about the curse of the number ones? 22 consecutive number one seeds for the College World Series have failed to win the title. No number one seed in the current format has ever won the College World Series. Are you sure that you want Tennessee to be a number one seed?" Now, this was coming back from our show on May 12th. Now, obviously, Tennessee eventually did become the number one seed, so that's kind of where we're at now is, hey, look, it has been, and he's not wrong, it has been almost 23 years since a team that is number one in the bracket to win the College World Series. The last team to do so was Miami back in 1999. So no matter how good you are going into this tournament, there is a very good likelihood that you're not going to win it. The reason is because of what I just talked about a few seconds ago. It is very difficult to make it through the regionals, through the super regionals, then get to the 8-team College World Series, eliminate the 6 teams, and then you and one other team then have to go into another double elimination game or another double elimination tournament in the best of 3. It's very hard, okay? You could almost argue, in fact, you absolutely can't argue, that the college baseball tournament is the most difficult tournament for a men's team to win. You could absolutely argue it. I'd say men's team because I have no clue how swimming works. I have no clue how soccer or any of those other ones work. So yes, there could be the other formats could be identical to what you have in the College World Series. But you look at how college baseball is, how college football is, and how college basketball is. Winning the College World Series, to me, is the most difficult thing to do in college athletics. College football, you win 2 games now. It used to be 1. You win 2 games inside the college football playoff. You're the national champion. You also get sometimes 10 days in between your 2 games to get ready for that national championship game, because depending on what the schedule is and depending on where New Year's Eve or New Year's Day falls, you're going to have almost 10 days at the most sometimes to prepare for that national championship game. So you do have some time that if you have a little bit of a lingering issue and injury over the 10 days, it can get better. You then turn around and you look at college basketball. College basketball to me is the second most difficult because of the amount of games you have to win. You have to win 2 on the first weekend, 2 on the second weekend just to get to the Final Four. And then you have to win 2 more to be the national champion. So you have to win 6 games in a row. A lot of times that comes after you have to win 4 games before that just to be your conference champion. Yes, teams lose in the tournament as far as the conference tournament, and then they still go on to win the college basketball national championship. Yes, that does happen. But that basically means you have to go on like a 10-game winning streak before you cut down the nets in whatever city the Final Four is. In baseball, though, everything changes when it comes to, in college football, you basically have the same lineup for both games when you're playing in the national championship, barring an injury. In college basketball, roughly the exact same. There may be a player or so as far as when it comes to your down low guys, or if you're needing more speed on the court or something along those lines, that may be some changes that need to be made. But in baseball, literally every single game, you are changing your pitching staff, your batting lineup, every single part of it. You have pitchers that you can use in this game, but you can't use in that game because their arm is sore. You have batters that are not doing good against the righty, so you only play them against the lefty. You have all of these different scenarios that play out over the course of the next 4 or 5 or 6 weeks that you look at and think to myself, man, this is a never-ending cycle. It happens every single year. And that is what you're going to be facing. So to me, again, I know I'm a baseball guy. I know I play college baseball, and I know how difficult this tournament can be. Maybe I'm just being biased, but I do believe that the college baseball tournament is the most difficult tournament for somebody to win. That's the reason why no number one has won over the last 23 years, because it is so difficult. Because if you lose your ace or your number two, Kumar Rocker, like what we were just talking about, he gets dead arm. He starts having a nerve issue, which please, let's not have any nerve issues. Nerve issues normally lead to Tommy John surgery. You have those type of scenarios. Your big guy goes out, or your big pitcher goes out. Your ace goes down. Any of those scenarios happen, and now, you can make it. Look at last year. You had an NC State team that was the hottest baseball team in baseball. I'm not talking about college baseball. I'm talking about college baseball, minor league baseball, major league baseball, a high school team that's playing right down the street, wherever it is. They were the hottest team in baseball. And because of COVID testing, they were basically eliminated and had to go out with 10 players just to play a baseball game inside of the College World Series. And they eventually lost and got eliminated. Yeah, that happened. People forget about that. That happened. NC State got hit with COVID because of contact tracing. Like 90% of their team was wiped out, and they went to the stadium with like 10 or 12 players. They announced the players on the field, and they did, they did the national anthem and everything. And it seriously looked like your 12 and under travel ball team minus a couple players because they were on vacation this weekend during spring break. Like that's what it looked like. And they were playing in the College World Series like that because of an issue that beyond their control, they had to change up. That's why this tournament is so difficult. That's the reason why it's been 23 years since the number one team going into the tournament is the team that wins the national championship. And no, not only do you have to go and then win all of these double elimination tournaments, then they add in another one in the national championship. It's not just a single elimination game. It's now best 2 out of 3. And you saw exactly what happened last year where Vanderbilt won game 1, pitched amazing, dominated that game. Then you go into game 2 where Mississippi State scores like 13 or 14 runs and go into game 3. Rockers had pitched well in the first game, but you kind of started seeing the arms start to struggle a little bit. Looked a lot like the Max Scherzer incident during the postseason last year where you're going, oh, man, I just hope he can get through the game. We'll come to find out he has potential arm issues, and they're trying to figure out if he actually needs surgery or doesn't need surgery or anything like. He's pitching now in like independent ball, just waiting for the draft this year, just so that he can get redrafted because he didn't sign a deal with the New York Mets. That is something that was basically started that we all saw in the College World Series. That's why it is so difficult, because if you lose one pitcher, your whole thing is shot. Okay. With Tennessee having multiple pitchers, that any one of them could have been your pitcher of the year in the SEC, that makes it just a little bit better for them. So we will kind of see about what is going to be happening with them. Now, we have a couple of questions that we've already gotten in on the chat. Don't forget, you can shoot me a tweet at Joe Hunk. If you're watching on Zone TV, you can watch there. Throw your comments into the chat as we are going in through here. Now, one question that we have is about NESN. If you don't know what NESN is, it is the New England Sports Network, okay? This is where the Boston Red Sox play. This is the channel that the Boston Red Sox play on. If you do have MLB.TV, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But they have come up with an idea that they are going to start charging a standalone price of $30 a month for their service, okay? So that means regardless as to where you are, if you are a Boston Red Sox fan or if you are a Boston Bruins fan, you can then watch them no matter where it's at, whether it's on your Fire Stick TV, whether it's on your Roku, whether it's on your phone, no matter what app you're using, you can watch it right there. They're doing this $30 service. Is it worth it? Look, I pay $25 a month for MLB.tv, okay? That isn't even the best deal when it comes to baseball. True story. Right here, where I'm standing, First Horizon Park. You know how much it cost me to watch every single Nashville Sounds game all season long? Like $35 for the whole season, okay? That's not just $35 a month. That is for the entire season. And it's not just the Nashville Sounds games that I can watch. I can watch any minor league baseball game on my phone, on my iPad, stream it to my television. It looks just like I'm watching any other game, and it only cost me $35. By the way, that's the best deal when it comes to streaming. Just letting you know right now, you can watch the Sounds. You can watch what other minor league teams you're ever potentially wanting to watch. All of that, it's all one low price at MILB.tv. So just letting you know, you can do that, and I watch it every single night that I'm not. Like tonight, when I leave here, I'm going to turn the Sounds game on right as I'm about to leave, just so that I can kind of see what the team is doing right now in Durham, okay? $30 for their streaming service, that seems a little bit more expensive, okay? $10, I would be okay with. $15 a month, maybe. But the problem lies is the fact that there's going to be people that are going to see this as a great value, not because they're out of market, but because they're in market, and whatever streaming service they're using does not allow them to have Neeson, or however you pronounce it. Now, the whole part about this is we're in this kind of situation when it comes to Bally Sports. And if you don't know, Bally Sports are only on one streaming service, which means if you've cut your cords, you don't have your traditional cable, like, that comes from your outlet, and you're just using your streaming services, whether it is your YouTube TV, DirecTV Stream, if you're using Hulu Live, whatever it is, there's only one streaming service that actually has Bally Sports in it, and it is DirecTV Stream. So if you are a Preds fan, if you're a Braves fan, heck, if you're a Reds fan, because those games do come on there as well, the Grizz, if you're a fan of any of those teams, you can't watch it if you have a streaming service other than DirecTV Stream. And so that is where this issue lies with so many different people about, okay, well, if you charge me $10 a month, regardless as to what platform I am using, I would pay the $10 just so that I could watch my Braves games whenever I wanted to, or if I wanted to watch my Reds games whenever I want to, or the Grizzlies when they're playing, or the Preds when they're playing. I would do that. But Bally is just on one thing. Now, they're on your cable services, your DirecTV, like your actual satellite DirecTV. They're on your Dish networks. They're on your Comcast and all those. So don't think that they're nowhere else. But if you're a cord cutter, which I'm a cord cutter, if you are a cord cutter, unless you have one streaming service, you can't watch Bally Sports. So you have to figure out another way to do so. And I'm just going to say, wink, wink, I have figured out another way to do it because I have YouTube TV. Those are the issues that you find. So if Bally Sports were to say, hey, we'll charge you $15 a month and you can watch any of our Bally Sports coverages of baseball games, heck, you're getting about half the league right there. No, you're not going to get the Cubs, or you're not going to get the Yankees, or you're not going to get the Red Sox because they're all on their, individual networks that they have created. But there are a lot of teams that are on Bally Sports. And even if they only said, look, $10 gets you your regional games, I would be totally fine with that. I would pay $10 a month just for my regional games so that I could watch it without the hassle of trying to figure out, okay, well, is this app working this time? Oh, is this link working this time if I'm doing it from Reddit, or is this working along this time? So all of these questions that are going to be coming in about this. Neeson is doing this, but they're going to be seeing how well this works, and other cable providers and other providers of this is going to be the biggest thing that Major League Baseball could potentially do. And I mean this, not just Major League Baseball, but every single service could do, is in the blackout restrictions. That's where this is going to be the most important, because blackout restrictions mean that, if you are a Braves fan, you have to watch the Bally Sports channel on your Bally Sports. If you try to go to MLB.tv, it'll say this is blacked out in your area. Go back to the scenario I just said. If you don't have DirecTV Stream, or you don't have a traditional cable service, you can't watch the Braves. You can't watch the Preds. You can't watch the Grizz. You can't watch the Reds. You can't watch any of those games because of the fact that you don't have Bally Sports on your traditional or on your wire cutting service, unless you go with somebody like DirecTV Stream. So those are some of the scenarios that are being looked at. I would happily pay $10 to $15 a month if it allowed me to watch my teams like that, and there were no blackout restrictions. The blackout restrictions are the biggest part of this, because if you do pay for a service like NBA League Pass or Center Ice for the NHL, or even if we're talking about your Sunday ticket, instead of going through your normal cable service, which would be, whatever Fox service you're wanting to watch, or whatever CBS service that you're watching, wherever you're watching this, you then could just go through the Sunday ticket and boom, you get that. The problem lies in this, and we're seeing this not only just in television, but also in radio, is that there's still this struggle of seeing how your traditional ratings are counted compared to what your streaming ratings are counted. Honestly, streaming ratings are the most accurate ratings that you can ever get. Those are the ones that you're wanting to pay attention to the most, because that is a one-for-one thing. If you are and you have cut your cord, there is a setting inside of your device that you can go to and you can say, yes, I would like to be a Nielsen box or anything like that. And so stuff you watch does count towards the ratings. That's the reason why whenever you're seeing all these numbers that pop up about, on the streaming service, we had these numbers. The people have not figured out just yet, especially marketing companies, of how to get their clients to be more on board with digital service than what your traditional numbers are that come from your cable boxes and everything else. It's a weird thing that is going on through all of media, whether it is television, whether it's radio, whether it's newspapers and all that, because yes, there are newspaper services still out there. A lot of them are online and you got to pay for them. Tennessean is one of those. So those are some of these services that are trying to figure out this digital world and how to make money off of it. And when that happens, then the blackout restrictions go away, and our ability to be able to watch our teams on certain apps, they'll be able to figure out, okay, well, we had 2 million people that were watching this game, and 100,000 of that was on the app, and 1,500 of those were watching on our computers or something along those lines. Once they figure that out, that is when you're going to start seeing these digitals ideas start to come in, and you'll start seeing more companies doing this, and you'll also start to see less people kind of hold on to their pearls is kind of a good way that I like to say that. So you'll start seeing a little bit of that as well. Now, look, we're wrapping up tonight. Okay. Next Thursday. Okay. I want to emphasize this. Make sure that you are watching and you are listening to the Strike Zone next Thursday night, 7:00. Like tonight, I'm here inside of a suite overlooking the stadium. This is where a lot of times I will be on the weekends or the weeks that the team is traveling. Okay. I can already tell you where I'm going to be next Thursday. Okay. Right behind the left field wall in those picnic tables, directly behind the left field wall is where I'm going to be set up next Thursday night at 7:00. Okay. We are going to focus on the history of baseball in the city of Nashville. We got a couple of guests that are going to be coming on to talk about that history and talk about some of the things that are going to be going on during this homestand that the Sounds are about to be going on that involve some stuff that I was talking to you about. Turkey Stearns is going to be obviously involved. His family's going to be there. By the way, Turkey Stearns passed away like 50 years ago. Just want to let you know. But batted .349 throughout his entire career. Played in Nashville, played in Montgomery, played for the Detroit Stars, played for a ton of Negro League baseball teams. He is in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, or I should say the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was inducted in 2000. Saturday night is going to be an amazing evening here at the stadium. So make sure that you're there. Thursday night, we are going to dive into the history of baseball in the city of Nashville as well as the state of Tennessee. We've talked about it for a few weeks. We got a couple of guests that are going to be coming on with us. Some are going to be joining us actually at the stadium itself coming up on Thursday night that are going to talk about not only the initiative that the Sounds are involved in called the Nine, but what it does for remembering the past that is baseball throughout the city of Nashville. It's going to be an amazing evening. Make sure that you're watching it. Join us right here so that you can have some fun with us. And we will see you next Thursday night, 7:00. I'll be right behind that left field wall here at First Horizon Park. See you next Thursday. Thank you for watching the Strike Zone.